sorry about my dog barking in the background. So for those in the audience, this session is about the SSI mentoring program, and we're lucky enough to have a host of mentors and mentees with us today who will be sharing their experiences from the program, but also talking more broadly around what are some of the soft skills that we really need to focus on developing as an industry to level up our ability to work globally, to work collaboratively, and to really move forward into a future that's going to have increasing disruption, whether it be from COVID, climate change, or who knows what the next unexpected thing is going to be. So I might start off with Kate Fairley, who is actually a past FIG Young Surveyors Network chair. So Kate, tell us a bit about yourself.
Thanks, Rosh, and I am so glad I'm not having to chair in this current environment. So full kudos to the organising team for pulling this off and organising these sessions so far. So as you said, I'm Kate Fairley. I am based in Wollongong, Australia. So I think as everyone else here is in Australia, so we can't really claim to any massive COVID impacts like the rest of you. But I do work for an international consulting firm in land administration, so have felt the impacts from globally as our projects have been affected. I've been working in the industry for about 12 or 13 years or so. I started out studying surveying, got an internship with Shell, got involved in the FIG, and basically managed to get a range of opportunities from there. And I guess I really wanted an international career, so made that happen. And I started off in GIS, and now I'm very much in sort of a land policy, legal land tenure space, but I've just signed up to be a consultant as a geospatial analyst again, so who knows. I'm going to give that one a go again. So I don't know what else you need me to say, but I think that'll do for now. Thanks, Roshni.
Amazing. Wow, you're jumping back into consulting. That's brave.
Very brave.
But good. I'd now like to hand over to Heli Kodasek.
Thank you, Roshni. I share Kate's view there, rather you than me. I think you've done amazing. So my name's Heli Kodasek. I'm based in Melbourne, and I've had my entire career has been for the last over 30 years, has been in primarily geospatial sector, but now more increasingly into just any kind of data with regards to... and I have no plan B. I will peg out doing geospatial and data-related things. It is the only place to be. And I've worked mainly in professional consulting services firms. So I've been really fortunate to be able to apply data solutions across a vast range of problems, be they in agriculture, transport, mining, urban planning. So it's been really varied and really rich, with data being the common thread all the way through. Really thrilled to be here.
Ellie, I'm really glad you're here too. You're a wealth of knowledge and experience, and you've got many great insights. And now to Inga Plale, who is one of the SSI board members and is really just full of gems of wisdom. Inga, tell us a bit about yourself.
Hi, Roshni, and thank you for inviting me. It's great to be here with everyone today. So, yes, my name's Inga Plale. I work for Hydro Tasmania. I've been with that business for about 12 years and been in the spatial industry for about 20 years now. So, my work with Hydro, we're Australia's, I think, leading generator of clean energy and based in Hobart in Tasmania. We have a pretty large geographic footprint over the state of Tasmania. So lots of dams, a couple of wind farms, some transmission assets, and a lot of property and water that we manage as well. So lots of spatial problems to solve in that job there. And also, as Roshni mentioned, outside of my paid work, I volunteer with the SSI Tas Regional Committee. I'm chair of that committee, and I'm also on the board of SSI on the national board. So, yeah, lots of different roles, lots of different things going on, and yeah, it's great to be here and have a chat today. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Inga. Now we've got Minja, who is one of our and also, well, he was one of the mentees in last year's mentoring program, but he is also on the organising committee of the program this year. Minja, over to you for an introduction. I'm not able to hear Minja. No? I might quickly jump over to Oscar. Minja, if you wouldn't mind maybe just leaving and coming back, that might help the issue.
Oh, can you hear me now?
Oh, I can hear you now.
Oh,
Go for it. Yes.
hi. Thanks. Sorry, yeah, speaker problem. So hi, my name is Ninja, and it's like Ninja, but started with M. I'm currently working as a spatial software engineer in a local company in Melbourne, Australia, and I was graduate from Master of IT in University of Melbourne, and I joined the spatial the triple SI mentoring program twice before as a like an early graduate and also as a first year graduate. So I'm currently, like Roche mentioned, working in as a committee member for this year. And in my daily works, I worked more about the combining spatial and GIS technology with the IT to provide the enterprise level project and solution for the different companies and organizations. So I'm very happy to be here as a mentee. Thanks, guys.
Ninja. And Oscar is also on the organising committee of the mentoring program this year, but has been involved not only as a mentee in a couple of the years of this mentoring program, but also in a Victorian regional mentoring program that was run before. So Oscar, over to you.
Thank you, Robbie. So I guess out of everyone, I probably have the least experience and least insight out of every single person. So I graduated last year. So I know some people in this call, well, not in this call, but some of the participants watching as well are graduates or are studying as well. So make no mistake, it is a tough situation. I guess for myself, I am a graduate spatial analyst at a consultancy company in Melbourne as well. In terms of what work I do, it's kind of quite varied. So sometimes I'll be making maps, sometimes I'll be working on databases. It really just depends what my team needs me to do. In terms of, I guess, volunteering outside, I've been involved in Triple Sci for about roughly 4 years now, relatively on young professional committees, whether it's, as Roshni said, helping with the mentoring programs. I've also been a mentee now for, I think, 3 separate years for those programs as well. So I figured I'd just join the organizing committee, being someone who's been on the programs plenty of times. But yeah, I'm very much, probably won't say too much, but I'll certainly try and contribute as much as I can. But yeah.
Thank you very much, Oscar. So for those of you who may not have heard about the Triple SI mentoring program, it is an initiative that we put together. It's run by a group of volunteers in Australia. Sorry about my dog barking in the background. The organisation who are running it are called the Triple SI Young Professionals. And the program is designed specifically around soft skills and intergenerational exchange of knowledge and experience. We recognise that in the surveying industry, within Australia and New Zealand, but also globally, that there is a bit of a gap between the communication and even styles of working, work values between different generations. And we would like to be a vehicle to help sustainability of our profession, to create strength and unity to move forward into a changing future with as much conviction and strength as we can. We recognise that people who've been working in the surveying and geospatial industry for decades have so much experience and knowledge, and we don't want that to be lost when they retire. And we also recognise that there are people who may be coming into the industry either from a career that they've had within another industry or directly out of university, and they have some skills that are just as valuable as that deep, solid knowledge and experience, because they might have less less fixed way of thinking, which we all get over time. They might have exposure to different technologies, different ways of thinking, different soft skill sets. And so the Triple SI mentoring program is designed to pardon me, be open to a global audience. It's entirely free, and applications for this year's program are open now. Pardon me. I'm far too excited about this panel. So what I might do is open up now to our panel and ask, what was your experience like in previous years of the mentoring program, and what soft skills has it prompted you to focus on learning now after the program? I'll open it up to anyone who would like to go first.
I'm happy to, Roshni. One of the things that I did was really interesting for me with the Triple SI mentoring program is I was partnered with a young surveyor in Hong Kong. And when I first found out that it was a young, pure survey professional, I wondered what on earth I could offer, my having been what I would consider a pure geospatial professional. And whilst I know there's overlap and a lot of commonality, I just was of the view that perhaps they're too different. And for me to bring any real value, but I was really, I suppose, pleasantly surprised, first of all, with my mentee. He was just awesome, Alex. But to discover that the macro themes remain unchanged from when I was a young professional myself 30, 25 years ago. And the macro themes are things like, you know, how do the young people get traction and heard and listened to by the older cohort as they're starting out? There's a sense that perhaps they're too young, too green, too not knowledgeable enough to be given any real responsibility. The other macro themes were, you know, how do they find their professional pathway in areas that sometimes seem blocked off to them. And another one was, you know, how do they write a case for something, whether it's a business case for to get some new technology or an additional person. So the macro themes that were behind it remain the same. In terms of what I found that the soft skills that I'm needing to focus on a bit more is patience. Because I think that one of the things that's really happened through COVID is it has been one of the biggest digital onboarding experiments of all time. And I think what's happened is there's this real impetus in business now to just get everything digitized, everything overhauled, everything done all at once, get the latest tech, the niftiest software, the greatest tools, etc., etc. And organisationally, an organisation can't do all that at once. They have to prioritise. But the sentiment, the mood is definitely there to get things really, a real digital transformation push. And I'm one of them. I'm wanting everything to happen now. So patience and prioritisation and an understanding of the macro influences in an organisation is what I'm having to work on.
Thanks, Helly.
Well, I can follow. I think that's really interesting, Helly. Thanks for that. Particularly that this mentoring program is breaking down barriers between surveying and spatial. As someone who's had their foot in both camps, I can, really great to hear that and to get that sort of across, that we are all working in the same field. We're all sort of struggling. Well, surveying probably feels like they're struggling a little bit more with bringing young professionals through, but they're also the profession that's sort of very much drawing boundaries around their own or demarcating their own profession and then sort of saying, well, that's what the architects do, that's what the spatials do, and then worried about IT and architects and civil engineers encroaching on their field. Whereas, you know, we do all need to be quite aware of that. We have porous boundaries. Young professionals coming through are potentially coming into careers that we don't know anything about yet. We don't know what they are yet. So, you know, how can we be flexible as a profession and respectful of the different skills that everyone has? To bring it back to Roshni's actual questions, I had two mentees who, one was based in Rwanda, and he was a young professional working with a university as well as with Esri from memory, and another one was a student who was based in Tasmania. So that was quite an interesting thing to juggle together. I chose to try and mentor them together and then sort of implement a bit of a peer-to-peer mentoring approach, encouraging Cillian, the young surveyor from Rwanda, to help me with mentoring John in Tasmania. So that worked really well too, sort of putting, removed the pressure from my shoulders, which is great. One of my soft skills I'm learning is delegation, which Roshni will also, I'm sure, appreciate. It's a difficult one to get to. But yeah, understanding through, learning through them as they were doing the peer-to-peer mentoring, what their focuses was and how their different approaches, how their approaches might be different to mine, and that doesn't undervalue it at all. And I think, Oscar, you kind of framed in your early introduction that you didn't think you had much to contribute, but like, don't believe that for a second, because you have your own experiences and you will have something, you do have something to contribute. And actually, I have a question for a lot of young surveyors out there. I've been trying to follow Twitter. And when I was the Young Surveyors Chair, we were trying to build Twitter, and then now it doesn't sound like anyone's using it. So I'd like to know what social media we are using. Young people perhaps help me. Again, back to Roshni's questions though, I think the thing that I have been thinking, or one of the many things I've been thinking a lot more about during and from the mentoring is this, I guess, the idea of listening, which is a very basic soft skill and one that we know we should all have, but we are at various times better or worse at it. I know that I'm a terrible listener, which has been really bad for me during COVID, because I cannot listen to webinars and podcasts and things. I go off and do something else and I get distracted and I realize I'm not actually listening. So I think for me, it's sort of thinking about this listening online. When we're in this online environment, how can we proactively listen? How can we listen and like retain and translate or process that information? But then also, as we're promoting ourselves online, because there's so many different channels online that we can be promoting our knowledge and responding to, how does that translate into listening as well as not just this eternal sort of pushing out of information? How are we building and being creative together in that? And I might stop there.
That was great, Kate. Inga.
Oh yeah, thanks, Kate. It's very interesting to hear that. I have something to share in today about the soft skills that Roshni mentioned these questions. The first thing is I want to talk about some experience for me through my 2 times mentor program. The first time, my mentor, who is a business development, actually from the similar company that I'm working on now. Yeah, and the second mentor that I had was a project manager, but mostly working on some technical stuff in a state government. So they have quite different positions, but I find something very interesting from both of them. No matter like you're working on the more like business work or more like financial work or more technical things, if you want to doing something really good, I noticed they also have the quite good skills on the other thing. For example, the business dev one, actually he has quite a experience on the GIS, spatial and technology part. And for the project manager, he's very good listener and communicator when we're talking to each other. So you see, that's the first soft skills that I think is very, very important, is listening something that's outside your comfortable zone. Like trying to be like good at everything, not good at everything, but trying to learning everything. Not only just focus on your position. That's if you want to expand your life, that's a very good one. A second thing is about the self-adjustment. It's quite a hard year last year because of the COVID. Everyone is stuck at home, especially I think for young surveyor news, because all the constructions have stopped. So surveying work is kind of hard to find, especially on your earlier career. It's very hard to find a job now compared with the year before. And so, but it doesn't mean you are not good, you are not outstanding, or like you don't need to like trying to adopt or adjust your to judge yourself. It's just because of the bad luck of the whole environment. It's not your problem. So trying to be patient, self-adjust yourself, and you will find a job. Many of my friends, it takes time, but yeah, that's something also very, very important, the patience, I think, during this. Yeah, that's what I learned from my mentoring program. Thanks, guys.
Yeah, Inga.
Thanks. Yeah, some great common themes coming through here. I think, yeah, definitely listening is one that has been mentioned a couple of times, but for me, it's just so important. Sometimes I catch myself thinking about what I'm going to say next, but I need to bring myself back to that situation of actually probably listening to what is being said. So, yeah, listening to understand is really important, and it's such a skill that it's not only important in professional life, but also you can take some of these skills out into your personal life too, which can really help improve relationships and just general things in your personal life. So I think I've been a mentor in the program 2 years, and I think for me it's kind of sparked a bit of I guess learning into areas where I hadn't some of the emotional, I guess, intelligence of my first mentor program. I had a graduate who had a couple of years experience. So I think, yeah, sparking that desire to learn and realising that we all need to be continuous learners. We don't kind of get to a point in our career where we kind of know it all and that's it, we're fine. We need to constantly learn and adapt and keep our thinking flexible. So yeah, being part of the mentoring program has really benefited me, I think, in that way.
Thanks, Inga. And Oscar, I'm sure you'll actually have quite a bit to say. You're full of good ideas.
Roshni, you're just fluffing me up. Now,
No, Oscar.
in terms of Haley's point about digitization, so the funny thing is actually, so the job I'm currently in, I was studying and then I got offered a position casually for them. And this was back when, in case you weren't sure, Melbourne had like very intense lockdowns. We couldn't go outside. I think we could only go outside to buy groceries, exercise for about 1 hour. I think this was back when we had the 5 meter kilometer buffer. I didn't think much about digital onboarding until I think I got a post from the company and they had sent me a backpack with my laptop, with my mouse and my headset. And it really hit me that I was working digitally. And I still remember the first day when I was doing the digital onboarding, my manager and I got on a call and and he just said, Oscar, you're the first person we've digitally onboarded in our team, in our company, in the whole of Australia. So I actually don't know what we should be doing. And I was like, yeah, I don't know either as well. So it was a interesting experience. I think also so I've done the mentoring program 3 times, and I think that year I also had a mentor as well, and she was working she worked in government, and she was a transport analyst. And I remember I was telling her when I first started my first job in the week, and I had my meeting with her, and I said to her, I honestly don't know how well I'm doing. Like, it's hard as a young professional. It is hard because I think in the office it's a lot easier for your manager and people in your team to sort of connect, understand what projects you're working on, talking to get help. Your manager can see how you're progressing and developing. When I was at home, it was very, very hard. It was I no joke, like my team uses Teams or Slack or Discord. You can see like people's online statuses, so you could see if they were online, if they were, not in a meeting, in a call. It was really hard when I got stuck and everyone in my team was in a call and I was like, do I type a message and hope they'll read it, but then potentially be seen as rude because I'm interrupting a call? Or do I wait for them to end the call, but I don't know how long their call is? So that was sort of a lot of balancing. And I think a soft skill that I definitely had to learn was I think 2 things in particular, probably communication. I think people think if you're a young person, you know how to use technology, which is true. But I think and people assume, well, you must be good at digital communication, so social media, for example. And I think my experience being on university student groups and even working as well, currently in my role as well, that's not necessarily an advantage. I think sometimes, yes, we can use the technology better than the older people in our industry, but I think the fundamental rules of communication still apply. And I think for me, it was a big struggle, sort of understanding how to digitally communicate in a professional environment. It was a lot difficult trying to figure out how formal I should be, how informal can I be, is it okay to sort of message someone when they're in a business meeting, sort of setting up times in people's calendars. That was something that definitely helped. And I think one of the things that I think someone in my group said to me in my team when they found out, I wasn't asking them for help on projects, they said, they just said, if you're struggling, just set a time in our calendars and we'll dedicate the time to talk to you. It's not their fault that they're neglecting me. It's just they themselves are struggling as well. Another thing I sort of struggled with is also resilience. This is something my mentor sort of helped with me as well, was sort of explaining, constantly encouraging me, constantly giving feedback. Oscar, stop worrying if you're not doing a good job. They haven't fired you yet, so you're fine. Like, stop freaking out about it. If you're not doing a bad job, your manager will tell you in person. They're not just going to fire you and leave you out in the cold. So yeah, that was another soft skill that I definitely didn't think about before COVID in 2020, but something and a skill that I had to learn about as well. So yeah.
Can I jump in, Roshni? I think that's really, really, really insightful. And I think the balance between formal and informal communication in this online world is really challenging. And if it helps at all, Oscar, I think it takes me a good 6 months face-to-face in a job to settle in and to really feel confident going to someone asking for help or admitting that I don't really know what I'm doing. And to sort of have to have these sort of formal and informal conversations virtually or on the phone with someone when you don't really know them, and you don't know, like, some people are quite abrupt, some people are really chatty, it's that balance of how do you work that out when you've had this virtual onboarding and you haven't physically met anyone, and can you pick up the phone? I think that's a real challenge, and something that, again, the people who are in the company already need to be a bit more upfront with, this is my communication style, this is what I'd prefer you to do, and being, this is something that we all need to take on board, and being really overt in what is our communication style, what are our values, how do we like to be approached in the workplace, and then just, the person who told you, block something in my calendar, or I'm struggling too, that's also really helpful. And I think the other thing that you mentioned on resilience was this understanding that you're going okay, and that's a really difficult transition when you're going from university and you've been constantly marked and told this is where you rank, to suddenly you're in the workplace and you're like, I don't know if I'm doing okay or not. No one's marking me anymore. And it's something that I find difficult as a consultant, because I work for this company, but I'm actually working on a project for the World Bank or someone in the UN, and they're not experts in my field. They've hired me as an expert, but I'm not, these expert areas are kind of fuzzy, so they don't necessarily know what they want. They've kind of said, I want a land administration expert. Okay, I guess I'm a land administration expert, but you come in and I'm actually dealing with the property tax situation in Egypt. I'm not a property tax expert. I've got to try, and then I've got to work out, okay, who do I ask and how do I get to that? But none of this is in a formal, your traditional environment where you are being assessed or you have the full information. It's not transparent. We're working in this space where we have very limited information, and we've just got to communicate with as many people as possible to try and, get their feedback, I guess, on how we're going, and then change our direction. That's kind of, I thought that was really good. Thanks, Oscar.
And I think what all of you have kind of hit on in some way or another is the idea that as our industry is changing, there are things that come left field and, knock us off our socks, like COVID, but there's also changes that come a little bit more slowly, like advances in space technology that allow us to have much better insights through Earth observation or, communications. Internet of Things, all of these things are developing slowly. We're getting smart cities. We've got digital twins, spatial digital twins. All of these advancements are coming along. There's two great questions in the chat that I would really love to incorporate into our discussion. One is about reverse mentoring. And so, in your experience in the mentoring program, did you feel that it was more one way, or did you feel that it was two way? And with the concept of reverse mentoring, do you find that it's something that you're open to, or that you find a little bit challenging? How do you feel about reverse mentoring? And the other question is the appetite for change within various industries, which is that's a big bucket. I don't know if we can really go too deep into it in this conversation, but surveyors often do get a bit of a reputation for being somewhat change averse. And how do you think we can change that and challenge that moving forward with all of this disruption? And as Helly mentioned, this rapid, mad dash to update all of our technology in every way possible.
I can start, Roshni, if you're happy with that. So reverse mentoring gets a big tick from me, and I am routinely reminding my cohort, the over 50s, to exercise some professional humility when they're dealing with their younger cohort. And it's because I think that as a general rule, when you've been in business for a very long time, and particularly when you've been on the tools, right, and I'm speaking from experience, your entire competence and your perception of yourself is built around how you use this tool and how you can showcase how good you are and how well you think, and so as the tools have changed and the younger generation comes in, your competence is absolutely destabilized by these super talented, super clever, super fast, tech agnostic young sparks, and it's it can be very destabilizing, very intimidating. So I urge the younger people to consider what just their very presence does to the older generation. We feel completely bamboozled by all the new tech and the latest things. However, the right kind of older cohort recognise that the best combination for a business or organisation is to have the IP and the depth of experience and the understanding of risk and prioritisation from the older cohort, and combine it with the enthusiasm, the will and the energy of the younger cohort and their tech agnosticism, which is awesome, and so I think, I learned so much from the younger generation, and I de-skilled from the tools a very, very long time ago, so much so that when I used to run a team, some of my younger staff would say, Helly, put down the mouse and step away from the software. That alone, don't go near it, you're only going to wreck it. And they were right. They were completely right. And so we found this balance, and I would say back to them, okay, it's time for you to go away now. And so we would find this humour in it, I think, which is very important, but you've got to let it happen, because the older cohort will not necessarily be at the forefront of the latest technological adoption. But boy, we can de-risk a program. Boy, we can almost predict and anticipate what might go wrong. And boy, we know how to effectively optimise the spend of an organisation. So that's what we've got to aim for. And I have some comments. I'll let my peers comment now, but if we've got time, I've got some comments on the change resistance of the survey profession. Maybe we can circle back around to that, because I'm keen to hear the others.
Inga, Minja.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Haley, you have talked about like how the young mentors or generations going to inspire you in different ways. But sometimes it's the reverse mentoring is also on the reverse way, right? Like for example, when we're learning the programming, the different programming languages in uni, and it's something very new you learned, but maybe some people already joined in the industry 10 years ago, they never learned about that. You thought, okay, I know that, they don't know that, so I'm better. But actually, that's not the truth. If you think about reverse mentoring on the technical part, what I've experienced is my manager, who is, I think, is already joined the industry for 15 years, and he never used this one. But sometimes if I have some questions, for example, on Python, and I'm going to ask him, he always can give me some ideas or inspirations on the different way of thinking. It's sometimes not about technical, but about like how to thinking in this project or this system, how to involve with that, because they have more experience, right? So the reverse mentoring, that's as I said, reverse mentoring. If you combine it with the like a reverse mentoring, like two direction mentoring is always the best way to learn things. Yeah, that's yeah. I think that's very interesting.
Definitely, Ninja.
Absolutely. And I think even though we might not call it reverse mentoring, I think the reason why I do participate in the mentoring program is because I get a lot out of it and I learn things. And yeah, I think as Harry and Minji were saying, when we have kind of the diversity of age and thoughts, then we really can all benefit and yeah, keep learning. So absolutely, reverse mentoring is a good idea. We might not call it that, but I think it definitely happens.
Kate, Oscar.
You to go.
Okay, sure. Thanks, Kate. I think Haley sort of hit a really good point that I think is about sort of the older generation about tools and skills, and I think this is probably what actually to the Triple SI mentoring program at the very start was its emphasis on soft skills. I think I'm not going to say like young people know every single piece of software out there and we're completely software agnostic. I think that's sort of true potentially, but that's just my experience with my fellow students and cohorts. But I think the thing is that tools and technology changes. I think a classic example for the GIS people here, I think there's a tool called MapInfo, the industry standard, and now Esri ArcMap. But the thing is, though, using these pieces of software, yes, the UI looks different. Yes, the tools are certainly different than certainly some of the calculations and the analysis tools are different. But the things that always remain the same are the principles. When you were, say, doing transport, you set up a road network, what data you put in. That the data and the name and the quality and accuracy can change, but the principles behind how that analysis works is still very fundamentally still universal and still applied. And I think in terms of reverse mentoring, I think when you focus specifically on soft skills, you allow that to happen. I think technical skills is I think, and I've been involved in sort of other programs where they heavily focus on technical mentoring, where it's purely just about the tools. And you do find that if there is a disparity in levels, it's a lot harder to do reverse mentoring. In particularly, I know one of my friends who was a part of it, he said as a younger professional, it was a lot harder to sort of, I guess, sort of get engaged because he felt that majority of this session was just the mentor just constantly lecturing him on how to use a tool in a certain way. And he felt it was a lot harder to sort of bring in that sort of different perspective and different change. So I think an emphasis on soft skills is quite good. In terms of Chris's comment about change resistance in surveyors, I actually argue that it's the opposite. I know a lot of friends of mine who are surveyors who have actually changed to GIS, but there are a lot of GIS specialists who absolutely, I wouldn't say snob surveying, but they definitely have a way of sort of showing that they don't particularly appreciate what surveying does. And I think that is in itself an issue because I think without one or the other, we are useless as an industry. Like we do need surveyors to capture all the data who, fly their drones and get the LiDAR capture. But the surveyors also need us as well to sort of make sense of that data to the general public as well. So it's not like one of the I think change resistance goes both ways. I think the stereotype that surveyors don't necessarily appreciate GIS professionals is just one-sided. I think it is definitely both as well.
Jump in there, but I might throw it to Hallie because I'm interested in what you have to say on the stuff. On this barrier between the professions, I'd really encourage everyone to look at the FIG definition of surveyor, because I think once you understand the full breadth of this space that we're in, surveying spatial, you realize like how much crossover there is and how little barrier there is. Even, I mean, I'm actually doing a lot of work in spatial planning at the moment, and I would never have originally said that a planner was the same as a surveyor, and particularly in Australia, we've got the planners over here and the surveyors over here. But it's very similar, and there's a lot of crossover. Additionally with spatial. And then similarly, I got into surveying because I wanted to map Mars. So all this stuff about landing, I think China's just landed on Mars, right? The Mars rover, all that stuff is amazing. And sure, I could have gone and become an aerospace engineer or what have you, but there's multiple routes into any career, and I don't think that really matters. So the less we worry about this boundary thing. But the common thing in this around this change, I think, is, I guess, realizing that change is slow and accepting that change is slow and accepting that it's 2 steps back forward and 1 step back, or occasionally 3 steps back and then 5 steps forward, we hope. I work in land administration internationally, so we're basically assisting countries to map all the lands they have, understand how they can, what options they have for managing land, for administering land, helping populations to formalize their land rights, either because they want to and they're, you know, really pushing to have their informal settlements rights recognized, or helping them to understand why they should want to. In the case of, I'm currently working in Egypt, shout out to any Egyptian surveyors who might be online, but I doubt it, where the bulk of the population sees no value in having their lands registered in the land registry for a variety of reasons. One is that the fees involved. 2 is just the pace of bureaucracy, which is really slow, and the length of time and effort it would take to get it through. So a number of reasons, but, you know, looking to improve those systems. The Prime Minister of Egypt has declared that they're going to title and have all of their land parcels digitally available within 3 years, which is going to be incredibly difficult. I won't say the I word, but incredibly difficult would be the closest. So I think there needs to be this recognition, I guess, generally, that change takes time, and sustainable change takes time in particular, that you can get things to change quickly, but for it to happen sustainably needs to take a really long time. So in terms of this reputation that surveyors have for being change adverse, maybe the reason it takes a long time is because of this generational change. We need more younger people coming through enforcing this change. And maybe I'll just stop there with my thoughts, because I'm really keen to hear what Helly has to say.
Just jumping quickly there, and I think one thing is the image of the industry is no longer what people probably have in their minds. We're not full of pale stale males anymore. There is a lot of diversity that's come in, especially in the last 5 years, 10 years. Ellie, I really want to hear what you have to say as well.
Oh, look, my view, working with surveyors, engineering profession all my career, and there was definitely this divide, and I put it down to, this is a historic comment, and I do believe it's changing, is the sort of surveying profession and engineering profession, it's deeply, deeply rooted in first principles mathematics, trigonometry, triangulation, all the unchanging stuff that has been in place since the dawn of time. And so there's an element of it that persists and is unchanging, and it suits a particular mindset that likes the prescriptive, procedural, highly correct approach, because as an engineer or surveyor or what have you, or geotechnical engineer, and there's a lot of similarities between the two, you can't afford to have grey areas. You can't afford to say, well, you know, I think that's that high, or I think that bridge is going to stay up. You can't do that. It's very, very deterministic and very, very deliberate. And so I think there's a natural, and it's not a resistance, but there's a natural first principle to the actual profession, and that needs to stay. It needs to stay unchanged in many ways. But I think also the overlap between the survey and geospatial, it used to be quite distinct, and I agree with you, Oscar. There was a little bit of superiority, I think. It's all about the way you approach the overlap, your mindset about the overlap. If you view the overlap between the two professions as a useful and beneficial overlap, then there's all sorts of opportunities to be busted out. But too often, I think in the past, the survey and geospatial professions viewed that overlap as contested space and tried to own it. And I think that's historic. And I definitely think that the younger generations of surveyors who are far more wise to the profession of geospatial, who are far more visually in terms of what a great map looks like, for example, as opposed to just some black lines on a white background. I think there's a real useful sort of osmosing between the two. But it all depends on how the two professions view that overlap, and we've got to view it as beneficial, not contested space.
So I really am thoroughly enjoying this conversation, and I wish it could go on for hours, but we are already a little bit over time. I'd like to wrap up this session just with going one by one to each of you. If you could maybe share with us your number one takeaway question or concept or thought that this discussion has brought forward for you today. I'll start with Minja.
Oh yeah, so that's a very good question. to take a if I want to take away a question from today's panel, I'm probably going to dig more about the people's thinking of the soft skills, especially during the lockdown. I have some ideas for myself, but after listening to everyone else, I think I get like a better idea of the people working in a different position and with a different field, even in a different location. You know, think about the things, especially you think about the lockdown and you think about the COVID, it have a different impact in different countries. So maybe the soft skills are different, you know, for us. So I will going to talk with more people to think about this question. That's for me. Thanks, Rosh.
Kate?
Yeah, I'm stretching from what to pick to say. As everyone here knows, I posed a lot of questions in the emails, and I didn't have answers to any of them, I don't think. But I guess a couple of things I've written down that we didn't really touch on that I'd love everyone to reflect more on, and we can continue, is one is about inclusiveness, and I think we touched this a little bit with change. The more we recognise how inclusive and exclusive we are as surveying and spatial professionals, and I mean gender, race, indigeneity, your age differences, cultural differences, competence differences, speciality differences, the more we recognize that, I think that will itself contribute to change, because you start to realize a little bit more of this space that you don't know and where you need to tap elsewhere. But I think in Australia, we have a long way to go in terms of being more inclusive, even with the changes that we've already seen. And I think internationally, that's possibly also the case. The FIG has traditionally always been very European dominated. It's changing a lot. And I think the YSN has been had a huge impact on that. And I'm really impressed at what the recent chairs have managed to achieve. So inclusiveness, and I guess my key comment to, I think this is coming up Oscar a little bit, is this fake your confidence. None of us are as confident as we look. So that's my little piece of advice to all the young surveyors. If we sound confident, we're probably not, we're just faking it. Thanks.
Thank you, Kate. Inga, over to you.
Oh, you stole my idea, Kate. No, I think confident. I got to talk about confidence, because it's come up for me multiple times in my career too, when you have, whether you're a mentee or mentor, someone that helps to bring you up and believe in yourself. That's so important, and I think that's one of the great things that does come out of the mentoring program. I also think that perhaps as a profession, we're not always that good about selling ourselves and talking about all the good things we do. So yeah, being able to promote our value and realizing that we really have something to offer is, yeah, absolutely very important. Thanks.
Thank you, Inga. Oscar?
Oh, there we are. Thanks for the encouraging words, Kate. I think I'll definitely know when I can fake my confidence once I get to the level that all of you have. And there's a lot that wasn't said, unfortunately, due to time constraints, but I guess I'll leave two thoughts on this. Kate mentioned something about engaging surveyors through social media, and Haley mentioned something about change and mindset and things. Oh, he comes back. Chat to a Twitter hashtag called GIS Chat. Without a doubt, that is the single most useful resource I've ever used in this industry. Reason being is because I see all these things that all these countries and different professionals are posting, whether it's, I found a podcast from some two African GIS analyst talking about how to get a scholarship for a paid graduate position. I personally, not something in my horizon, but I knew friends of mine who were interested, and I sent it to them, and they said, wow, this was actually useful. I would never think anyone from another country would do something like this. There's like various different tools that are posted there. So if you want to see what's going on in the world, definitely good podcast to look to. Also, in terms of, Roshni has put a link in the mentoring program, but if you don't have the time, if you can't commit to the time commitment, one of the things you can also do is listen to podcasts, but also read books. Books are a great mentoring tool. Maybe you won't necessarily get the reverse mentoring from it, but definitely books are a great way, and particularly biographies, to learn what other people have been doing with their lives, answer questions from them. One of my favorite things that I picked up was reading Stoic philosophy. I've learned a lot from that. So yeah, those are my sort of 2 closing thoughts.
Thank you, Oscar. Helly.
Oh, look, I've really enjoyed today. So my key thoughts from today is I was wondering whether I would have time in my world to sign up for the SSSI mentoring program this year, and this has motivated me to go. Doesn't matter if I don't have time, I'm just going to do it anyway because I've just been reminded of how much I enjoyed my time last year, and so I will make the time. Because this has kind of reminded me of, just how important it is, because we do have to keep, flying the flag for geospatial and surveying and the related disciplines. And a final note for, I guess, the mentees that are listening in is to always ask how you're going of your older cohorts. Oscar said that, he couldn't tell if it was doing all right because of this kind of digital disconnection that was going on. But the people in the older generations, we love being asked for our opinions and feeling like our opinions are still valued and that. So don't ever be shy. Don't ever feel like you're asking silly questions. There is no such thing as a silly question. You've heard that said before. So I encourage you all to reach out and just ask. And ask for opinions, ask for experiences, just ask how you're doing. It's well worth it. And thank you, Roshni, for this great opportunity.
Thank you very much, Helly, Kate, Inga, Ninja, and Oscar. And I'd like to wrap up this session with a final question and challenge to everybody on the line today. What soft skill do you think you'd like to work on? And can you think of one thing that you could do today, one thing you could do in the next week, and one thing you can do in the next month to take that forward? And with that, we'll leave you here today. If you could all go back to the stage, which is on the left-hand panel of your screen, it'll be in the options there, and we'll have the. Hello, everybody, and welcome to the closing section of our conference today. This is, it's just been an incredible session here with the Asia Pacific cohort. We've really had some gems of wisdom when it comes to the content that's been shared by the speakers and the questions that have been asked by the audience. And so today we've had a range of presentations across the board, which have really covered a broad scope of content. We kicked off with a range of keynotes, and we started with Dr. Bala from City Futures Research Centre from the University of New South Wales. And Bala spoke about a whole range of interesting insights about developing a real-time dashboard to monitor the impact of COVID-19 on the real estate market in Australia. And it was interesting to understand from his presentation how some of the insights that we get from developing technology like this come back to the quality and availability of data. And if we want to create similar insights for other regions, other countries, really opening up the data that will facilitate dashboards and other technologies is key. Then we heard from Professor Alan Duffy from Swinburne University about space and spatial opportunities and challenges. One of the biggest takeaways that I took from this is that space is unlocking immense potential for us moving forward to take the work that our industry is doing and really skyrocket it to have much more impact. The power of Earth observation is one thing, but also the power of space to enable communications will unlock things like the Internet of Things, and also space unlocks for us a wealth of opportunities for collaboration to be a truly global industry. Not only that, but all of us will pretty much end up working in some way or another linking to the space industry, using the wealth of deep experience that we have in our current calling or careers. And it's very easy to use micro-credentials and other small, achievable and accessible degrees to allow us to become much more skilled and maximize the potential of our careers. In the keynotes, finally, we heard from Priya Gandhi from Atelier 10 about climate change and how climate change will change the way that we plan our cities and buildings, but also how it's going to impact the way that the world and our industry works. Climate change is the next big disruptor. Hopefully we don't have more. But it really will affect the way that we engage with our professions and our careers and each other and society as a whole on an ethical and moral bandwidth. And so if we're able to consider the way that we work now and the impact that we can have in small and large ways, it will mean that we're much more resilient to facing climate change as it comes closer. It's already here, but as we move towards 2030, the impacts are going to become rapidly much more evident and much more dire. Following the keynotes, we had two parallel streams, one on professional development and one on technical skills. Within the professional development stream, we heard from Chetna Ben of the University of South Pacific, documenting our experiences as surveyors, and Laurie Lapat about soft skills and how they can take our careers further. Within the technical stream, we heard from Chris Marshall from Frontier SI about SBAS and how this is unlocking precise positioning in the Asia Pacific region. Following our parallel streams, we had the interactive session with the SSI mentoring program cohort of mentors and mentees, speaking about their experiences in the program, but more so about what soft skills are required for leadership in our new normal for our industry. And so over the course of today, we've touched on many and varied aspects of our really quite amazing industry. I hope that you have been inspired to consider all of the interesting things that are part and parcel of our industry that you may not have considered as strongly before. I hope that you've been provoked to think about different ways that we can approach the work that we do, given the context of further disruption and climate change that will no doubt mean that we have to change the ways that we work, live, and think moving into the future. And I hope you've been inspired to connect with your peers and people that you may not have yet met in different and varied parts of our industry. I'd now like to reach out to Corbina to wrap up and present the final part of our closing. Thank you so much, everybody. It's been an honor to have you attend this with us.
Thank you very much, Roshni. It was quite an interesting session, and thank you also for your wrap up over here. So just to close the session, I would like to talk about the FIG Foundation and then other things relating to the conference to close. So to start with, the FIG Foundation was founded in 2001, and it's an independent body under the International Federation of Surveyors. It was established with one of the purposes to raise funds to finance surveying education, development projects, and support young surveyors in order to build a more sustainable future. And so an event such as this falls squarely in within their aims. And since the establishment of Young Surveyors Network in 2006, the FIG Foundation has provided over 208 grants, totaling over 303,000 euros. And so, in fact, last week I think was the 20th anniversary to the date of the founding of the FIG Foundation, and this year also marks the 15th year of the Young Surveyors Network. And to just give a snapshot of the activities of the Young Surveyors Network that have been supported by the FIG Foundation, these are just a few of them. And so this year, this conference was by no means an exception, as the FIG Foundation funded 75 young surveyors to join this conference. Now, normally the foundation funds just about 4 or 5 young surveyors, depending on the amount of funding available. However, this year being an online conference, this is the silver lining, having 75 the FIG Foundation grants joining the conference. And just to close off the aspects on the FIG Foundation, this is just a cartoon that was actually drawn at the second Asia and the Pacific network meeting in Tokyo, I think in 2018. And quite interestingly, this is just to show how strong the partnership between the foundation and the network is. And right here at the center of it, you can see one of the most prominent persons in the foundation who has personally been very much interested in the work of our network, John Hohol, who is the president of the FIG Foundation. Yeah, so to close off, I would like to thank the very international organizing team that put together this program. And right there in the middle of it, we can see Australia's own Roshni Sharma, Pacific, who put together the Asia and the Pacific program. We also had Shelley and Sharma with the Asia and the Africa and European program. Dr. Jacob Heck from the US for the North American program, and finally Melissa Roberts from Uruguay for the South American program. And for the other parts of the organization, we had the logistics being handled by David from Nigeria, the social media and communication being handled by Tim from the Netherlands. And as I mentioned at the beginning, at the opening session, throughout the organizing of this conference and even during the conference, there has been a strong link with the local organizing committee of the FIG 2021 Working Week. And so we had Simona Emmens from the Netherlands being our representative on the local organizing committee. You can also continue with your link with FIG Young Surveyors Network by joining our social media channels here. And then, or you can also send us an email at via fig.youngsurveyors@gmail.com. So what's next for the working week? Well, a couple of announcements relating to the working week. As you have registered for this Young Surveyors event, you still get to get access to the FIG 2021 Working Week. However, you will need to re-register for this. And so a registration link, a special registration link will be sent to your email to enable you to register for the Working Week. So please watch out for that. So finally, a big thank you to our supporters, who include the Council of European Geodetic Surveyors, the Geoinformation Netherlands, which is the FIG member association in the Netherlands, and then the FIG Foundation. But not only them, we also had general sponsors who also helped to make this meeting possible. So thanks for joining our 6th Young Surveyors Conference, and I hope to see you in 4 weeks' time for the FIG Working Week, and I hope to see you all also in person for the 7th FIG Young Surveyors Conference in Cape Town next year. Thank you very much.